So what do I recommend? Now, here's the problem. Why do I use the Legacy Standard Bible? Because it uses a form of the divine name Yahweh, but it doesn't have the Deuterocanonicals. I like the New King James Version. Doesn't have the Deuterocanonicals. Revised Standard Version, not so much. Why? Revised Standard Version caused controversy. What do I mean? When it came out, the churches were in uproar, decried it, spoke against it, which is why it didn't become popular. I'm going to explain to you why. Explain to you why. Up until the 1950s, 1952, the king of all English translations was the King James Bible, right? English-speaking churches were reading King James Bible. And up until the 1880s, they read it with the Apocrypha, Deuterocanonicals. So they were trying to replace the King James Bible with other versions based on a different Greek critical text, the Westcott and Hort text. Okay, let me give you a little history. In the 19th century, 1800s, a group of scholars were commissioned. Two of them on the committee, Westcott and Hort. B.F. Westcott. Hort's full name slips my mind. But there's also an outstanding Christian named John Burgon. John Burgon, one of the most educated Christians of the 19th century, 1800s, diehard Trinitarian, who loved and worshiped Lord Jesus Christ, knew church fathers like the back of his hand. They commissioned a committee to update the King James Bible vernacular, but go with the same Greek text. The Textus Receptus received text, first edited by Erasmus and then Beza and others, right? That was based off of the majority text, the majority Greek copies produced by Byzantine monks. And that Byzantine text is the official Greek text of the Eastern Orthodox Church. On the committee was a Unitarian. Okay, fine and dandy. Westcott and Hort betrayed their commission. The commission was update the King James, use the same Greek text. Westcott and Hort, behind the scenes, were editing a Greek New Testament critical edition based on Codex Vaticanus and Sinaiticus and other witnesses. They introduced that Greek text, betraying their mandate, causing John Burgon to expose them publicly, bash them publicly, and write a book condemning them for using a corrupt Greek critical text that was inferior to the Greek text used by the King James Version. And he wrote a book called Revision Revised, blasting them, exposing their betrayal. You can find it. You probably can find this PDF. Revision Revised. And he wrote books defending the authenticity of the longer ending Mark 16:9-20, 1 John 5:7, 1 Timothy 3:16, etc. Thank the Lord for John Burgon, or Burgon, Dean John Burgon. The Lord had placed him in that committee. What did I say? You will have wolves, but God will always make sure his true shepherds are there to expose. The Lord shepherd, John Burgon, was there to expose these wolves. But guess what happened? Westcott and Hort won out. The majority of your New Testament textual critics follow a Greek critical text that's pretty much the offspring of the Westcott and Hort Greek text. Not identical, but Westcott and Hort set the wheels in motion for modern textual criticism. And so almost all of your translations are based on a Greek critical New Testament text, edited, collated, using the principles of Westcott and Hort, revising them, just like they did with Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. Instead of abandoning Darwinian evolution, they keep revising it because they don't want to get rid of it. And that's what they're doing with the Westcott and Hort text. They don't want to get rid of it. They just keep revising, updating, but they still follow their principles that the superior, best manuscripts where you find the original reading will be in the Alexandrian stream. That's what they call it. The witnesses from Alexandria, Egypt, Codex Vaticanus, Sinaiticus, and ignoring the later Greek manuscripts of the New Testament, which are the majority, over 5,000 of them, that have a higher degree of agreement, are more accurate, and obviously are based on older manuscripts. This they don't tell you. This they won't tell you. Okay? And so, ever since Westcott and Hort, there's been a concerted effort to change the opinion of Christians to go with what they think are the superior Greek manuscripts and go what they think are the original readings, which is why in most of your translations, you'll have notes telling you Mark 16, 9-20, not found in our earliest and best manuscripts, a lie. John 7, 53, 8-11, not found in our earliest, best manuscripts, half-truth, not complete picture, and so on and so forth. Precisely. Jesus Christ reigns, former J.W. Elder, the very interlinear of the Greek New Testament used by Jehovah's Witnesses is the Westcott Hort Greek text. Did you guys know that? Their kingdom interlinear is nothing more than the collated, edited Greek New Testament text of Westcott and Hort, and they say it. But we will put things in perspective. Even though there are differences, still, let's put things in perspective, not overstate the case and exaggerate them. All of the Greek manuscripts that have been collated, all of your critical Greek New Testament editions used for translations, they still agree over 90% of the time. The agreement between these Greek critical New Testament editions and your modern versions, right, comes to over 90% of the time, meaning all of your versions are still translating the same Greek New Testament over 90% of the time. Depending on the translation, you may have anywhere from only 2% disagreement to 7% disagreement. So keep that in mind. That's why if I pick up an NIV, King James, they will still agree in the New Testament over 90% of the time, because that's how solid and fixed the New Testament is. God has marvelously preserved his word through the manuscripts. That's why I can read NIV and give you the same theology, Christology, pneumatology, and I can even use the Jehovah's Witness Bible for that specific purpose. Most of the issues come down to translation, not the text. The text is the same over 90% of the time, and depending on what version you use, they will have only 2% to 7% difference. So that just tells you the marvelous, miraculous protection, preservation of the Bible. This is a fact. I'm not lying. Pick up NIV, King James, New Testament. You're going to see that it really comes down to translation, not the Greek text. They're translating the same Greek text over 90% of the time. So you can rest assured God has preserved his words, because the God of the Bible is real and he's almighty. Okay? But those minor differences, though minor, still have an impact. Here it is. He got the link for you. They use this is JW Bible, by the way. They use the Westcott and Hort critical Greek text, published when? 1881. Now remember, they betrayed their mandate. They were not told to introduce a new Greek text. They did it anyway. Who exposed them? John Bergen, Revision Revised. He warned the folks, this is what they're doing behind the scenes. You got it? Now, all of this to say, when I recommend modern versions, I have to do so cautiously. Do so cautiously. Why? When Revised Standard Version came out, it caused an uproar, a huge decry, which is why it pretty much became obsolete. But wait, Satan doesn't stop. Satan infiltrates. Remember I said there are wolves in every major level of Christianity and in our institutions, even secular ones, to try to turn you away from God and corrupt you? Here's one of the reasons why they flipped Revised Standard Version. Christians who grew up on the King James went to Isaiah 7:14, Revised Standard Version. They saw, hey, Whoa, wait. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, a young woman shall conceive. Wait, they translated ha-almaz, young woman. What happened to the word virgin? Oh, and then Revised Standard Version, Catholic edition. A young woman. Wait, what? And so these changes caused the Christians to condemn the Revised Standard Version, and it never caught on. So now I don't have my St. Ignatius Study Bible here, somewhere here. Can you guys check St. Ignatius Study Bible? Did those Catholics change it to virgin? Because the Revised Standard Version Catholic edition does not have virgin, it has young woman. Oh, it's going to get worse, Ingrid. And I'm going to show you what Justin Martyr warned was taking place in his time. Nothing new under the sun. That's why we are blessed to have these church fathers. Because Justin Martyr warned about this corruption. He was debating Trypho the Jew. All right? I want to show you how God glorifies his name and showing you he's preserved your faith because of the church that has been preserved. Are you aware that Justin Martyr already spoke about this mistranslation? In debating with Trypho the Jew, he's debating him, and he's telling him in the 2nd century that the Jews, to spite Christians and to undermine the Septuagint, the translation 70, produced their own Greek translations of the Old Testament. Even Irenaeus was aware of it. Now let me show you the beauty of our church and why you should be thanking the Lord. If you guys are ancient and you recognize these men as your saints, you're blessed. These men have been fighting for the truth before we existed. Now I want you to see what Justin Martyr says. He says to Trypho, right here, the Jews rejected the tradition of the Septuagint. The Jews who don't believe in Christ don't accept the Greek version of the Old Testament produced by Jews, by 70 Jews. That's why it's called the Septuagint. Look what he says. But I'm far from putting reliance in your teachers, who refuse to admit that the interpretation made by the 70 elders who were with Ptolemy, king of the Egyptians, is a correct one. And they attempt to frame another. Now, guys, listen as we go out with a bang. He says, look, I don't trust your teachers. They're corrupt. Why? Because your Jewish teachers don't accept this translation 70. They don't accept the Septuagint, so they came up with their own Greek versions. And he was right. At that time, they had 3 Greek versions of the Old Testament produced by 3 individuals. Aquila, Symmachus, Theodotion. Listen, in the 2nd century, 2 converts to Judaism and another one, Aquila, Symmachus, Theodotion. Some say they're all converts. Be that as it may. They decided to translate the Hebrew into Greek in order to supplant the Septuagint. And the Jews who rejected Jesus went with their versions. Now watch here. Here's what Justin Martyr said they did in their Greek. And I wish you to observe that they have altogether taken away many scriptures from the translations affected by those 70 elders who were with Ptolemy, and by which this very man who was crucified is proved to have been set forth expressly as God and man, and is being crucified and is dying. But since I'm aware that this is denied by all your nation, notice what he's saying. I'm aware you don't believe this. If I show you places in the Septuagint where your Greek versions omit or change, you're going to say, we corrupted the Bible. So I can't convince you, so I'm not going to waste my time. You see what he's saying? But now watch an example he gives of corruption. Nothing new under the sun. Watch an example he gives of corruption. So you won't believe me if I show you how your Greek versions have omitted verses from the Greek version we have done by Jews. Wasn't done by Christians. So I'm not going to bother with that, but let me just mention right here. But since I'm aware that this is denied by all your nation, I do not adjust myself to these points, but I proceed to carry on my discussions by means of those passages who are still admitted by you. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quote those verses that you still have intact. But here's an example. For you assent to those, so you assent to the people, Symmachus, Aquila, Theodotion, because they're the 3 who translated Old Testament in the Greek, which I brought before your attention, except that you contradict the statement, behold, the virgin shall conceive, and say it ought to be read, behold, the young woman shall conceive. Damn, Gina. The Christians had to address this even back then. Justin Martyr just said, the 70 translated Isaiah 7:14 in Greek as the virgin, but you went ahead and said, no, it's young woman. And in Greek, the Septuagint renders it as parthenos. Parthenos can mean virgin, but they translate it as neanis, Neanis. Also, Irenaeus mentioned the same fact. He has also mentioned this, to deny the virgin birth. And I promise to prove that the prophets referred not as you were taught, Hezekiah, but to this Christ of mine. And now I shall go to the proof. Now, let me ask you a question. Since both Justin Martyr and Irenaeus are telling you that they're mistranslating ha-alma as young woman, neanis in Greek, as opposed to virgin, parthenos in Greek. Beware of that. What then do you do with Christian translators translating ha-alma as young woman? What do I mean? Let's go back. Revised Standard Version, right? Young woman. Oh, but it's not only Revised Standard Version. Voice. A young maiden will conceive. Let's see how many translations, most of whom done by professing Christians, be they evangelicals or Catholics. Okay. Revised Standard Version, bunch of liberals, young woman. All right, we'll forget that. New Life Version is still good because it says young woman who has never known a man. That's good. NET, done by evangelical Trinitarian scholars who teach in seminary. Look how bad this is. Look, this young woman is about to conceive and will give birth to a sign. You, young woman, will name him Emmanuel. They not only translate young woman, but they added it a second time for emphasis. You guys see that? These are evangelical Trinitarian scholars. What do you think Justin Martyr, Irenaeus would have done to them? New Catholic Bible, kosher here. Let's see. Let's see. Well, let's go on. Let's see. So far, good. Virgin, 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 virgin. Virgin is conceiving. Virgin will be pregnant. Virgin, all right, watch here. Good News Translation. A young woman who is pregnant will have a son. Interesting. Exegetical Bible, put virgin but or young woman, giving that as an option. Why? The young woman is pregnant. Okay. Complete Jewish Bible. The young woman will become pregnant. Common English Bible. The young woman is pregnant. When Revised Standard Version came out, the church condemned it, decried it, spoke against it. And yet right now, as we speak, you have multiple Bibles online for free that read young woman, and where's the outcry? Who's warning the churches? You know why? Satan doesn't sleep. He doesn't stop. If he can't get you the first time, he's going to keep trying until eventually he lulls you to sleep and you buy into the lie. Now, how does he do it? By indoctrinating you. What do I mean? By giving you notes. New American Bible Revised Edition. This is a Catholic Bible. Telling you, well, the word for alma doesn't merely mean virgin. See why modern versions are because of their notes? Let's see what it says. Young woman, Hebrew alma designates young woman of marriageable age without specific reference to virginity. That's a Catholic note. They just destroyed your faith. It's not the most reliable, Desmond. It's okay. It's good. Better than these others. See that? New American Bible, Revised Edition. The Septuagint translated the Hebrew term as parthenos. Parthenos, which only does mean virgin, and this translation underlies Matthew 1:23. Let's see NET. That's why if you can perfect your reading comprehension, but you're going to need an English dictionary of the 17th century. I'm not lying. If you're going to read King James and you're going to read Dewey Rheims, you need an English dictionary of the 17th century to see how these words were defined back then. Not a modern English translation that doesn't reflect usage back then. Now let's go to NET. Ready? Look at the NET notes. NET note. What does it say about young woman? The young woman, the Hebrew article has been rendered as a demonstrative pronoun, and the translation bring out its force. In addition, the syntactical sequence, hinna, followed by the article, followed by a noun, always refers to something definite and present at the scene of the prophet's interview with Ahaz. Isaiah had met him where the people wash clothes. Likely, there are many women present. You see what they're telling you? It has nothing to do about Mary at the scene. Isaiah addressed to the house of David in his use of second plural forms directly suggests other people are present, and his use of the second feminine singular verb form, you will name, later in the verse is best explained, if addressed to a woman who is present. Now watch this note. Traditionally, textual virgin, because this verse from Isaiah is quoted in Matthew 1:23, connection with Jesus' birth, the Isaiah passage has been regarded since the earliest Christian times as a prophecy of Christ's virgin birth. Much debate has taken place over the best way to translate this Hebrew term. Debate among whom? The early church? No, only among you scholars, corrupted by the love of the world, academia. Although ultimately one's view of the doctrine of the virgin birth of Christ is unaffected. Can you believe this? Even if it's not about the virgin birth, Matthew and Luke still say he's born of a virgin. Yeah, but Matthew then can be accused of misquoting a prophecy that's not about the virgin birth. Though the Hebrew word used here, alma, can sometimes refer to a woman as a virgin. Sometimes there's not one uncontested usage of alma that doesn't refer to a virgin. It does not carry this meaning inherently. Now, notice the contradiction. Meaning is derived from usage. You understand? Why they're talking out of both sides of their mouth? You don't know what a word means apart from the way it's used. If the term has always been used in the Hebrew Bible for a mature woman who's a virgin, then it's part of its inherent meaning. What the hell are you talking about? See the deception? The word is simply the feminine form of the corresponding masculine noun, ilim, the young man, or alim. So what? Just because the masculine form may be used of a man who's not sexually a virgin, that doesn't tell me how alma is used. If I see alma is always used in the Old Testament for a virgin, then that's part of its meaning, because meaning is derived from usage, not from the root. The Aramaic and Ugaritic cognate terms are both used of women who are not virgins. So what? That's Aramaic Ugaritic text. That's not the Old Testament text. The Septuagint translators, which what Justin Martyr was referring to, who later translated the book of Isaiah into Greek, sometimes between the 2nd and 1st century before Christ, however, rendered the Hebrew tune by the more specific Greek word parthenos. That was Justin Martyr's point exactly. Jews understood this to be a virgin, which does mean virgin in a technical sense. This is the Greek term that also appears in the citation of Isaiah 7:14 and Matthew 1:23. Therefore, regardless of the meaning of the term in the Old Testament context, see what they just did? It doesn't matter what it means in the Old Testament. For Christians, what matters is how Matthew used it. But that's one of the objections raised by Tovia Singer. Matthew is a liar who misquotes Old Testament. In the New Testament, Matthew's usage of the Greek term parthenos clearly indicates that from his perspective, notice, his perspective, which is not the Old Testament perspective. See what they did? A virgin birth has taken place. So what's my answer? If you don't understand Elizabethan English, then for the time being, use New King James Version. Problem is, it doesn't have the Deuterocanonicals. Legacy Standard Bible, New American Standard Bible, 1995 edition. Problem is, doesn't have the Deuterocanonicals. Or get you the English Standard Version, Catholic edition, St. Augustine edition. Because a lot of people don't know, English Standard Version is the updated, revised version of Revised Standard Version. Did you know that? A group of conservative evangelicals bought the right, or got permission, I should say, to take the Revised Standard Version and update it. So the English Standard Version is the updated edition of the Revised Standard Version to make it more conservative, and they have a Catholic edition with the Deuterocanonicals translated. Capiche? Those are my recommendations.